The word why. What a curious word. The kind of word that can make us cringe, feel defensive, or even distant. But you know, sometimes why is the key. A key that can unlock so much to our lives. Join me as we explore the why with fascinating contributors to the world, those that entertain us, inform us, teach us about life, and if we're lucky, inspire the next in all of us. I'm your host, Dr. Rod Berger, and welcome to HeadRoom, a production of Rainlight and co-produced by Old Soul. Let's go. Well, excited to spend some time here with a man that so many know, Jermaine Dupri. He is CEO and founder of the record label So Def, Grammy Award-winning songwriter and producer, and an inductee in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And he is also the founder of JD's Vegan. Jermaine, great to spend some time with you today. Before we get into background, tell me sort of why this business for you. It's not like, you know, you haven't reached I think a level of success that many would aspire to. So what was it about being a vegan and also getting into the food industry that appealed to you most?
First of all, thank you for having me. Well, like you said, I'm vegan. I've been vegan for 16, going on 17 years. And it's naturally it's my lifestyle. So I tell people all the time, I made JD's Vegan for me, basically, because we as vegans and the vegan community, we lack in that area. And it's funny because once I said that, and once I created JD's Vegan, I see, all kind of vegan ice creams popping up everywhere and this, that, and the third. But for the most part, it's a lack of care about, any type of product in the vegan arena. I feel like it's a lack of care in that in our food area, period. So it's been something that I've been talking about since I became vegan and I started eating at multiple different places in different cities, and just going around the world and seeing what people think about vegan and veganism, period, and saying, okay, it's a void here. It's a lot of places, we just got a burger, we just got one burger that or two burgers that people actually are starting to actually like and actually serve at multiple places, which is impossible and beyond. But prior to that, me being vegan as long as I have, I've been vegan before those products was even in existence. So I was feeling the same way about burgers. It was used to be a vegan burger used to be just made of like fruits and vegetables, and like that's what the patty was made of that. And I used to be like, this is not it's got to be something better than this. So I just been on this page for a minute. I never actually thought that I was gonna create a brand that was gonna go to Walmart and be, a successful food brand as it is and all of that. I never saw that going all the way and happening like that. But I definitely have been talking about this for the last 10 years.
Are there any parallels, Jermaine, to when you started in the music industry and you obviously discovered Crisscross? When you think about, sort of, it was a passion, you kind of, all of a sudden you wake up and my goodness, now you've got a brand that's in Walmart and expanding nationwide. And when you were younger at that point, finding them, and then you established So Def, like, are there any parallels to, is it your personality? Is it just something in you that says sort of, why not? Talk with me about that.
Yeah, I'm the guy that, I'm not the guy, but I'm a guy that wakes up every day and says, I look around and I see what's missing automatically, right? Same thing like Crisscross. Crisscross was, I guess I can go on record and say the first kid rap group ever, right? At least successful anyway. And that was the thing. I looked around and I saw, rap being what rap is to kids and what rap is to the younger generation. It's funny to me always because as I got older, the younger rappers would say to me, "Oh, gee, you know, it's a different world out here. It's a young man's game." And I'm like, "You don't even understand that I'm the person who actually started young people like young people in rap, right?" So it's just it's a funny thing because people don't. Yeah, I my thing is I pay attention to what's missing, and that's always been my um I feel like that's always been my niche in the music business because you coming from the South and not having the press and um the the already want to be a part of the music game coming from New York and LA. Me being from Atlanta, I was always slighted if I tried to go down that road. It seemed like people was, I was I was I was trying to be popular from Atlanta when Atlanta wasn't cool and when the South wasn't popular and when there wasn't no trap music and it wasn't, Futures and it wasn't none of these. I was the guy that was in Atlanta trying to make sure people was paying attention to Atlanta, and they didn't care to pay attention to Atlanta. So I had to figure out my way to make people care and pay attention to what was happening in this city. So I learned very quickly that I had to find my own niche and what was my niche compared to the other people that was coming out, putting out records at that time.
What were you like as a kid, Jermaine? I mean, when I hear you talk, it sounds like you have an insatiable need to understand, and there's a curiosity that sort of walks with you on a moment by moment basis, and that helps you in looking at sort of what's missing. Were you like that way as a kid? Were you always sort of wondering what's missing, curious?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Like I said, I think this is a designed thing that I realized had to happen in order for me to coexist with everything else that was going on.
I know you mention a lot in press, and you have throughout the years, just this symbiotic, this relationship you have with Atlanta. What does Atlanta mean to you when you think about all that you've done in your career, now what you're doing, obviously with JD's Vegan?
It's just the actual definition of cultural. I hear people use this term so much now in hip hop, but I don't know if people really understand what that actually means, or have actually lived the definition of it. I actually am the true definition of cultural connection, meaning city and music running hand in hand. I I I put out Crisscross at a time when, like I said, nobody wasn't thinking about Atlanta. And still to this day, Crisscross don't actually get credit for putting Atlanta hip hop in the space that it's in right now. And I'm not saying that they did, but what I'm saying is that we were the forefathers, which sounds crazy to me, but we were the forefathers of, well, I would say successful rap in the city, because before Crisscross, no rappers in Atlanta sold 1 million, 2 million, 3 million records. So, and that's a stat that never gets talked about. It doesn't really matter, I guess, but that's one that ties me culturally. To answer your question, that's the one that ties me culturally to this city like no other, because the people that actually are here or that's from here that understand that and watch this journey of hip hop become successful in the South or in Atlanta, period. They all have this one common thread where they say, Crisscross was my first tape. This was the first concert I went to. This was da 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 da. This was whatever it is. It's something that was there first that involves something so death, right? And that to me is the Def Jam of New York, and that's the Ruthless of LA. That's these things are culturally intertwined in people's lives, and it'll never go anywhere.
Let's talk about being an entrepreneur. I think that term, my opinion is that term, when you and I we're in similar age, when we were growing up, I don't think people really knew what that word even meant. I mean, it was sort of culturally, people just worked where they worked, or they followed in their parents' footsteps, or whatever that looked like. But now we're of generations where everybody's an entrepreneur, even teenagers, right, are thinking about what they want to do and how many businesses they want to start. When did you realize that you were an entrepreneur? When did that word have meaning for you? And how has that changed over time with success?
I knew that I wanted to be something. I didn't even know what entrepreneur that word was. But at 12 years old, I knew that I wanted to be something. I was going to school and I was doing my schoolwork, but then I went on tour at 12 as a dancer. And when I went on tour at 12, I realized, well, one, I let me take it back. I didn't realize. One, I went on tour at 12, and my mother and my father were kind of arguing back and forth about me going on tour because my mother was more concerned about my schooling than my father was. And my father was like, everything's going to be cool. We're going to get him a tutor and everything is going to work out, right? Now, take you back to Atlanta, 1983 or 84. 1984 in Atlanta, there was no kids going on tour at the age of 12 and 13. So the Atlanta public school system didn't accept credits or work from a tutor. But we didn't know this. We was just, my father was just believing that he had put me on a path that was going to work. My mother didn't trust in the path. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I just was like, I'm getting out of school. I'm going to go on tour.
You were happy.
Yeah, I'm happy. But the truth of the matter is, Atlanta, as we speak about it, wasn't prepared for this lifestyle. They hadn't seen anybody else come through the system asking for permission or asking the system to allow tutor credits or tutor grading to be accepted in this system. So I went on tour, and the first year that I went on tour, I came back to Atlanta, and we, I had a full, by the way, I had a full tutor paid, everything, tutor paid person that was out there on the road with me actually doing all my work. And I came back and they tried to flunk me. They said, we can't accept your grades. Now, I don't know why we didn't know this prior to me doing all this work, but anyway, like I said, I'm 12, I'm young, I don't know, I'm not having these conversations. But I come back and they try to, they said, well, we can't accept your grades. So if you come back to public school, you're gonna have to repeat sixth grade. And at that point, I went from being 12 years old to 21 years old immediately, because my mentality, I had been on tour, so I saw what I wanted at that point. I saw the life that I wanted. I didn't know that I was going to make music. This is prior to me making music. This is prior to me making records. This is prior to me rapping, anything. I was just dancing, but I saw other people doing what I thought I loved, which was music. And at that point, I just started saying, I got to get myself together. I got to do something else, because school, obviously, they've messed my schooling up. I'm not getting ready to go back, because I was, like I said, I wasn't a bad kid. I was a kid that was focused on doing what I had to do to stay on the tour. So I was doing all my work. Mind you, I didn't have money. I didn't have anything else to do but schoolwork and then perform. And I wasn't even a star. So it was like I was on the tour as just like I always say like a clown for the circus, because I wasn't even really like, it was just like a guy that just go out there and buy time. So, buy time for the show. Regardless of all of that, what it taught me so much, it gave me all my relationships with Run DMC, Houdini, Grandmaster Flash, all of these New York guys and hip hop. And it put me dead in the face of hip hop in an era where you can never be taught better. In the era that I learned, DJing, graffiti, MCing, everything. I learned it all. And coming from Atlanta, this is one of the things that I feel like God put me there and said, you have to go through this test. This is the school that you need to go to in order for you to walk this path that you don't know that you're gonna actually be on. So that's kind of how that happened. And it was just like, at that point, I came back home and my mentality was to do things that were entrepreneurial, I guess, right? And I started trying to cut people's grass in my neighborhood. And I found a friend in the neighborhood and I was like, listen, we're gonna start cutting these people's grass. We're gonna go to different houses and see if we can cut their grass. And I didn't even have a lawnmower at the time. I just started, my mind was just thinking like this. I didn't even have a lawnmower. And I remember this, we went to a house, we didn't even have a lawnmower, and the lady said yes, right? It was a house like 2-3 doors down from my house. And she said yes, and we didn't have a lawnmower. Now, my mother did have a lawnmower, but I hadn't asked my mother if I could use the lawnmower to start going around and using the service. So once the lady said yes, I'm guessing that's all I needed mentally to push me to go to the next level. Because I wasn't gonna ask my mom if I didn't have to work, I guess, basically. And once the lady said yes, then I came back home. I asked my mom and said, can we use the lawnmower? We're gonna start cutting people's yards around the house. I mean, around the neighborhood. And mind you, I was saying yards with an S, and I only had one person that said yes. But I was in that space totally. That's the space that I was in. And sure enough, 1 turned into 2, and 2 turned into 5. It never got to be crazy. But it was a taste of something that I liked. It was a taste of me asking for work, doing the work, and getting paid. And at that point, that's when my mind was just like, listen, I gotta change. I gotta do something. And I just started, going through the channels of hip hop, and DJing and producing just became second handed. And the same thing with this producing. I met these 2 girls, which would become my first group signed to a major label called Silk Times Leather. And I met these 2 girls on tour with Houdini, and they were the girlfriends of Houdini. And I met them on tour, and they told me they was from Atlanta. So I was like, oh, wow. And then the more that we talked, we just kept talking. And then I was like, you guys should come, pick me up. Now, mind you, I didn't have a car. I was, I think I was 14. I was like, you should come pick me up and take me around the city, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to figure out a way to get out. I don't have a car. These girls are a little bit older. They got cars and da, da, da. So I became like their little brother. And I learned that they wanted to rap. And out of nowhere, I'm like, y'all should let me make y'all's record. And
you'll figure out the details later, right?
Yeah, I have no equipment. I had never made a record for anybody. But it was just the thing that, like I said, I was on that page from wanting to cut grass. And I thought that I could do it. I just needed a vessel or somebody to give me the opportunity, and you saying yes was basically the motivation to make me do it. So the girls agreed, like, yeah, okay, we'll let you do it. And I'm like, to this day, I don't know what made them say yes, because I've never made a record in my life at this time. I don't have not one credit, but they say yes. They went along with it. And sure enough, I got them a major deal. They got signed to Geffen Records. And I actually wrote and produced the entire album at 16 years old. So I think I say God is God-given entrepreneurial attitude. I just had to like crank it up.
Let's talk about entrepreneurs. So a lot of entrepreneurs, Jermaine, there is this fear that they seem to that is almost fuel for them, right? That they fear going under. They fear their idea is not going to work. They fear they're not going to have enough funding or buy-in. This anxiety. I don't get that sense from you. I mean, I would imagine that those young ladies were like, yeah, he's young, but it's like this confidence that you had. Um, were there a time, and when you think about it, I mean, you're human. I would imagine you would still maybe, go to sleep at night feeling a little bit of anxiety, like, could you pull it off? Talk a little bit about that.
No, you know what's funny is I didn't have that then. I have it now. I had it last night. I was having the worst anxiety in my life last night. I have it now. I didn't have it then, but I definitely have it now.
So what is it like now? I mean, because I think people who don't understand the kind of success that you've earned and realized, I mean, what is anxiety like for you when you have that last night?
Keeping success is harder than achieving success. And I don't know that people even understand that. Like, people stumble upon success all the time. People can write a book, people could come up with a recipe and their restaurant explodes, and people could write a song and they write a song, and it goes number one. The gift after that is how many times can you do it, right? And that's the thing that I was told by Babyface when I became Jermaine Dupri, the young cocky producer. I met Babyface, and Babyface told me, he said, "Oh, you're the guy with the little crisscross song," and he said it like that, and it really disturbed me because I was young, I was getting money, and I had my first #1 record, and I'm like, little crisscross record, like who, like, of course it's Babyface. I'm not like, I don't want to say who are you, but I'm like, it's Babyface, and I'm just like, why you gotta try to say little, right? Because it just felt like he was trying to belittle what I was doing, and he could tell that I was disturbed. So he went on and told me, he said, "Listen, Jermaine, it's cool to have a #1 record, believe me, but it's even cooler when you can do it multiple times." And when he told me that, my excitement and my celebration for Crisscross immediately stopped that day. I didn't celebrate Crisscross anymore after that day. I just started thinking about next. I started thinking about what's next. I started thinking about, how do I continue this on? What can I do to get myself back to #1? And that's just always been the race from that point on. My mind is always in that space. So as I go and move forward right now, I start having anxiety because I'm like, of course I've done it. And of course it's, I've done this and I've done that and I've done whatever. But Jermaine, can you do it again? Jermaine, is it possible to do it again?
Do you find it's hard to celebrate success? I find that people that I talk to, it's like I interviewed one of the founders of Zappos, right? And he talked about just this challenge that everybody expects him to have another $1 billion idea. And I interpret that as it must be challenging to celebrate success if you are having to then think that very next day or in that moment, man, I got to do it again.
Yeah, that's the disgusting part of this life, because it is. It's not. It's sad that you don't get to celebrate it the way other people, like when people win the Super Bowl or the NBA finals, and the way they celebrate, and and they go to Disney World the next day and all of this extra stuff, and it's just such a celebration. If I go to Disney World after getting a #1 record, people will start to say, "Oh, this could possibly be the end," right? It just feels like, I don't know, and it might be, like I said, it might be just my mind telling me that, but for the most part, that's what I've seen. It also is a pattern of people that are in my business that just can't keep up with the success that they actually have. So it's already written, kinda, that this is going to happen to you, Jermaine. And, you know, I wake up every morning with the mindset that, no, this is not going to happen to me. This is not what's getting ready to happen. This is what people think is going to happen.
HeadRoom is produced by Old Soul, a one-stop marketing agency that understands the power of brand and nuance. Reach out to my guy Matt at Old Soul and supercharge your brand and content strategy. That's Old Soul. Shoot Matt a note at aoldsoul.com. That's AOLDSOUL.com. And now, back to our guest.
Yeah, and my mentality is just go. So, you know, as we, you know, last night I was in the studio working, trying to finish this new Usher album. And even in the mindset of trying to finish this, it's the things and the conversations that we have about these records. And I just started getting extremely nervous, and I could feel anxiety. And I was like, oh, damn, this is anxiety, I think. I never knew what that was, but I could feel it. I could start feeling it. I start feeling this nervousness. I start feeling this uneasiness. I start feeling this concerned about everything. Because at that point, that triggered me to start worrying about JD's vegan. It triggered me to start worrying about celebrating Mother's Day. It just made me start thinking about feeling uneasy about everything that's happening in the next 10 days.
I think the transparency is incredible for people who, I think people have this false sense, Jermaine, that someone who's reached a level of success like you, that it's just, you're made out of Teflon, like nothing bothers you. You know, you're just, you know, we see what we see in the magazines and that kind of thing, but it's actually, no, you're human and you go through the same emotions and challenges that we all do. What do you think the lesson is for entrepreneurs who are at the beginning of their journey? They're walking around the mall, meeting their crisscross. Like, what is the advice in being able to handle that? It's like, I spoke to a young entrepreneur a couple of weeks ago who said, oh gosh, my cash flow, I couldn't believe how much money I spent last year on contractors, right? And I said, you know, man, you just move that decimal point, because you got to be able to build up that muscle to be able to handle that as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think, well, I think the one thing I will say is that you can't have, like you said, it's a thing that since you interview more, you've seen the no fear. And you said it is a fear. Most of them, they have a fear in the beginning, and I don't have the fear.
Well, I think that they feel like there's this gap. And I would guess that what you go through, right, in your day and feeling stressed like you did last night is very much what, like, someone who is just starting out as an entrepreneur, but they think you don't experience that, right? They see you in the celebrity vein, right? So it's like, oh, it doesn't bother him. He'll just write another, you know, incredible record and that sort of a thing. I'm just saying those stresses, those anxieties are very much the same from a young entrepreneur that's just starting out. I'm wondering sort of what is the advice that you would give an entrepreneur who's trying to understand how to build that muscle to be able to deal with all of these stresses?
To pay attention to what actually has made you feel good. Because you're going to actually have more moments that make you feel bad than you have moments that make you feel good. So in your search for trying to feel better, just remember the things that did make you feel good in the process of journey, in the journey moving forward. Because that's one thing that I have to do constantly. And it's crazy when you have a career as long as mine, because you tend to forget, because it happened 10 years ago, it happened 20 years ago, it happened whatever. You tend to forget what was that thing that kept you feeling sane and kept you feeling happy. And you have to just go find that. You have to go back and find that. And it might not be a big thing, and you got to hold on to it for as long as you can, but knowing that you got to keep moving. But you find that, and then you try to find something that resembles that in whatever it is that you're trying to do new. So if you find it the first time, you just got to go back and find it. Keep finding that one thing the second time. And I believe if you start, it's just like going to the gym. People believe that they work out and their muscles get bigger and their body becomes more athletic or whatever it is because they go to the gym every day. I believe you have to do your brain. You do your brain the exact same way. If you repeat things that made you feel good, or you repeat the wins of your life, your mind becomes trained to win. Your mind becomes trained to find the win regardless of what else is going on. And that's what I believe I learned how to do without even knowing that that's what I was doing. I started trying to find the win out of everything that was going on in my life, whether it's whatever, and by the way, like I said, if 10 things are coming to me bad, one of those, one thing is coming to me that's good. So you find the win, and it's like, if you put all of your energy into that one winning situation, your mind starts to believe that that's what it's supposed to go after. So you just start chasing the win. In my case, definitely.
Let's talk about the word trust, Jermaine. I think when entrepreneurs start, in general, you almost feel like you have to ask people, like, could you help me, right? I want to start this business. And you feel almost apologetic because you need the help as an entrepreneur. And then as you start to get success, you find that people want to work with you or be around you for different motivations. And sometimes they're not the best motivations. How have you balanced trust as you have achieved success? And how does that relationship with trust impact the work that you do today?
Trust is bad. I don't trust many people at all.
That's the reality, huh? You don't.
Yeah, I don't trust people. I don't trust people at all because I actually don't believe, like you just said, when you, in the beginning, you're asking people for help. And then once you become successful, they want to be a part of what you're doing. Right. And me starting off so young, I saw so much of that and understood how it not being a true friend or a true partner or a true relationship, how much of that it was not a true situation. It was just oh, Jermaine, I see what you're doing. Oh, but you also was a person that was not 100% down with this idea in the beginning, So I just, for me, it's hard to trust people. It's hard for me to find people I trust. It's hard for me to allow people to even work for me based on that, because I don't always believe that they're going to do what I believe they should be doing for me, right? I believe they might do something that's for them through me, but I don't believe that they're going to do what I need done for me. So I feel like that's one of my bad traits, I think, maybe, because I don't hand off a lot of things. I'm pretty much hands-on on damn near everything that's going on in my life.
You said something earlier, a couple of things. I'm just curious as to your reflection on this. So you went through Atlanta public schools and you're 12 or 13 years old, and they say, Jermaine, you're going to have to repeat a grade, right? And you said you went from 12 to 21 basically overnight, right? Yes. And that changed your mindset. Then you talked about Babyface and that whole thing about, hey man, you're the guy with the quote unquote little crisscross record. And that conversation, it just changed overnight for you. Do you look back and think about these sort of pivotal moments that have, because I think that's a talent, whether you've thought about that or recognized it, but I don't know if a lot of people have that constitution to be able to take information and in that moment pivot in such a dramatic way. Do you think that that's something that is either necessary or something that an entrepreneur should strive to be able to do and stomach? Because that takes a lot of courage. I mean, it's easy for me to say because I'm hearing you talk about it. You're probably not thinking of it that way, but how do you look at that?
I think everyone should be able to, not even just entrepreneurs. I think that everyone should learn that, because what Babyface told me was actually what I needed to hear that nobody else was telling me. And you have to, we all have to learn when to listen, because we hear everything. By the way, we all hear everything, but learning when to listen to what we hear is a thing, you know? And although I was cocky at this young age, and although I was like, you know, I thought I was the shit and I was this, that, and the third, I also was listening, because at not one moment, like I said before, I did say, I mean, it is Babyface, right? So it's like, what he's telling me, I haven't done yet, you know? And if you pay attention to that in itself, and you listening to someone speak to you that's done way more than you, and that's done what they're basically telling you to do, or telling you what you need to do, they've done it multiple times and you haven't done it at all. That's what becomes the subject, right? That's what became my subject. And that's basically how I look at life, moving forward. Every time I encounter a situation where it feels like I should be listening more than I should be reacting, or, you know, moving forward with what I'm doing, I start rerunning what the conversation was in my head, and hearing these little points like, oh, okay, he told me this for a reason. He told you this for a reason. You you need to start focusing. And by the way, when Babyface told me this, I had a label deal. I had just got my label deal, Social Def, and I didn't have an artist. And, you know, majority of people in my position, they get the same thing. They get a label deal because of their success of something else, and they don't have artists to fulfill the label. They don't even have, they just get a label based on their success. And they get the opportunity to do based on the success, but they're not prepared for the success to continue. And like I said, Babyface was sent to me to tell me this, so that I could go find escape, and I could stop thinking about crisscross. So in that whole process, 5 to 6, in that conversation, 5 to 6 things that you asked me today actually happened in that conversation. I learned that if I want to be successful at what I'm doing, celebrating my win is not the way to get there. That's the first thing that I learned. And that's the first thing that I stopped doing. And that day, I stopped celebrating crisscross. And that was the beginning of the question that you asked about celebrating. You don't have no time to celebrate. You don't have, you know, you did it, cool. Understand that people are going to look at you and say, okay, cool. And the bigger it is, I thought the bigger it is, the easier it got as far as people believing that you could do it again. But the bigger the success creates the lower belief that you can do it again.
Isn't that, that's the irony, isn't it?
Yes. That's the crazy part. And that's the part that was happening to me. And that's the anxiety that I was having last night, because Usher has sold more records than any other male R&B artist besides Michael Jackson to date that's still alive.
So a little pressure there.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure there. It's a lot of pressure. Meanwhile, I just had a #1 record with Ari Lennox called Pressure. But thinking of that, right? Like the Ari Lennox record just went #1. I think 2 months ago, and it doesn't even feel like it was the number one record to me because I'm in this space with Usher and I'm in this space with another artist, and I'm already in this space of just like, okay, yeah, that's cool. And, yeah, I had a number one record, but I'm over here trying to figure this out.
If Jermaine, if I were to spend some time with Babyface, what do you think he would share with me about if he recalled that conversation that he had with you years ago that seemed to be so instrumental in your path, let alone your success? What do you think he would say about you as an entrepreneur?
I'm not sure. I would hope that he would even remember the conversation because he said it to me so effortlessly that I'm not sure he would even remember it. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't seem like that seemed like that was his mind space, period. It doesn't seem like he was like trying to say something to me. It would seem like he would have said that to anyone at the time. It was just so fluent, and it wasn't like him thinking of anything. It was just, his conversation with one producer to the next. So I'm not really sure what he would say. I would hope that he's paid attention to me saying this multiple times and how much, it has guided me to this space that I'm in. But yeah, I'm not sure.
As you now, continue to expand JD's Vegan, we think about being an entrepreneur. Is there, and we use music as a backdrop to that, is there a rhythm to being an entrepreneur that feels very musical to you?
Yeah, without a doubt. It's you got to keep the beat. You got to keep the beat up. Because people don't understand slow music. So you got to keep the beat up. Slow music in the business arena feels like you're losing ground. Slow music in the music business feels like you don't understand the assignment. Upbeat music and the beat moving and the beat pumping feels like you have the eye of the tiger to those that's watching. But if you slow the beat down and you slow the music down just for a second, like I said, people automatically believe that you can't sustain the success. And I think this is by the way, this is something that goes throughout every genre of life. In sports, with LeBron James, it's like he went to the playoffs 8 years in a row, right? 8 years in a row with 3 different teams. Whether he won a lot, he still was always in the playoffs. In the finals. He went to the finals 8 years in a row. No other player has done this with 3 other teams. And at some point, you, as a person, you just want to slow the beat down. You just do. You just want to. That's just a natural thing. If you like music, at some point you like slower paced music. Whether you're driving home at night or whatever it is, you want to just slow the pace down. You just for a second. And in that 1 second of you slowing the pace down is when everybody else's minds start to unravel and pay attention to the beat changing and saying, oh, he's old and he's tired, or it's over. We've seen the best days of him, oh, he's this age and da 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 da. That's basically the same thing happened to me. People say the same thing. I'm turning 50 this year, and people believe that, they've seen the best of Jermaine Dupri. Jermaine Dupri believes that Quincy Jones made Thriller when he turned 50. I don't think people even understand that. Like, Quincy Jones made Thriller when he was 50. And Thriller became the biggest selling album in the history of music. This man made this album when he was 50. That's my idol. So I believe that, one, I believe that I'm a million steps behind Quincy, and two, I'm trying to chase that energy that he had when he was 50. So that's what people should understand what my mindset is. But I know that they are probably looking at it saying, the music slowed down, so the beat has changed. He's doing, and by the way, for me, the beat changing for me is the JD's Vegan, because it comes it's coming from left field. So they don't even know what the tempo of the beat is. It just doesn't feel like the music business. So it feels like I've transferred my energy from music into something else, because I'm not the music guy that they think I used to be, right? So it's that you have all of those things coming. So now that's what I'm saying. So that also builds into the anxiety, because I hear all of that chatter and I know that.
Has the food industry been welcoming to you, Jermaine, or like, does celebrity in one space hinder you, or does it make it more beneficial?
I don't. The food industry, I'm not really sure. I don't know much. No, I haven't seen many people from the food, and I believe that's because I'm vegan, right? And like I said in the beginning, vegans don't get. We haven't gotten that much love in our own space, period. So from a vegan community, yes, people are ecstatic, right? And people are they talk about, they love what I'm doing. But the one thing that I've noticed no one is paying attention to with JD's Vegan is the fact that I have changed the narrative of hip hop for the first time in hip hop, where JD's Vegan is not negative. JD's Vegan is not unhealthy. JD's Vegan is not something that you shouldn't be putting in your body. JD's Vegan is not something that can damage your body down the road. And I know this statement's going to be, people, I'm sure before I even say this, people hate these type of statements because it feels like I'm attacking people, but I'm not. Before I even say this, I want to make sure I'm clear. I'm not attacking anybody in hip hop, but I do want people to understand everything in hip hop is dark. It's gun violence, it's alcohol use. Majority of things that's sold in hip hop are not good for you as a person. When we talk about alcohol, not me, I had an alcohol brand, and most of all of the rappers have alcohol brands, right? It was like things that is alcohol, and now it's weed brands because weed is legal, and everything is basically still from the dark side of life. And I say that 'cause I'm a Star Wars fan. Everything is dark. everything's on the dark side of life. And everything is, people say, well, I mean, not weed, probably weed. I mean, all the weed heads probably hate me for that, but it's not, it can damage you, but it's not the best of the best for you as a person, right? So here comes something to hip hop that's created through hip hop, that's brought to you by hip hop, that's the heartbeat of this brand is hip hop. And it's healthy, and it's something that's a little bit more on the Jedi side as opposed to the dark side. And it's not really, I don't think people have taken that into consideration yet or even paid attention to that. That's one of the things that I want to really, really accomplish with this JD's Vegan, is to make sure that people do understand. In my community, high blood pressure and eating bad and people dying before 70 because of high blood pressure and not having the right diet and this, that, and the third, I can help you in that area based on what I'm doing here on JD's Vegan. And it's definitely a different challenge, but that's definitely what that's my goal. And that's one of the goals that I, tend to stick with in creating more foods and everything in this space.
Very powerful, Jermaine. And I appreciate the transparency. Let's close with this. You've been incredibly kind with your time today with all that you've got going on. My apologies to Usher. How do you label you? If someone's to label you, are you a songwriter? Are you an entertainer? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you tell me what best describes you?
I'm new. And I and I realized this.
I love that.
I realized I was new when I was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, because Jay-Z was the first rapper to be inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, which was mind-blowing to me when he got inducted. And then the year after he was inducted, I was inducted. So I became the second rapper to be inducted to the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And when I went into that room, I stopped for a second and just looked around the room. And here is an institution that's been going for 40, maybe 50 plus years. So in 40 to 50 plus years, that room had never seen anyone like Jermaine Dupri. Like, Babyface, even when you talk about bring back Babyface, no one in that room had ever written a #1 rap record and a #1 R&B record. These guys, they've written R&B songs, and they've written great country records, and they've written great pop records, and they all fit in that space. This guy wrote a great pop song. This guy wrote a great R&B song. This guy wrote a great country record. Jermaine Dupri wrote Jump, and Jermaine Dupri also was a writer on Always Be My Baby, We Belong Together, You Make Me Want Confessions. I've written #1 rap records, and I've written #1 pop records, and I've written #1 R&B records. And when a lot of people challenged me being in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and I realized that they never broke down that, because one, you don't understand that you're looking at something new if nobody tells you. You just believe that it's the same as everything else, because until we only know the word new because it's advertised. This is something new. This is da da da. But so I'm not advertised as something new, but I'm 100% new compared to whatever people think about me. That's what I feel like, even with this JD's Vegan, what I just described about JD's Vegan compared to a liquor brand or a weed company or this is new. It's something that's completely new compared to what you've seen before. And I believe that's my marching orders to continue to stay new. And by the way, that will drive you crazy. Trying to be new and find new every time might be the hardest job in the world. But that's who I am, new.
Well, Jermaine, I find you to be incredibly transparent and humble. And I think entrepreneurs can learn a lot from you because you're very approachable in the way in which you communicate your success and really your journey in that regard and your stick-to-itiveness. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch the growth and expansion of JD's Vegan. And I just appreciate the time to learn more about another human being that cares about others in the world and is willing to put themselves out there. So thanks so much, Jermaine.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for taking the plunge into HeadRoom, where we uncover the why behind the what and who impacting our lives. HeadRoom is a production of Rainlight and co-produced by our friends at Old Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Rod Berger, and this is HeadRoom.